Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hi, Emery. Oh, there's Daphne. Yay. Welcome, Daphne. Daphne, you can hear us? I just want to confirm. Just nod your head. Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session. Today, our workshop. So get ready for some interaction, that's for sure. Today, we are going to be presenting on a roundtable workshop called Made for Co-ops by Co-ops. And this is about a development of a co-op designed reporting and measuring tool for co-ops for SDGs. And today we have myself, Fiona Duguid, Daphne Rixon, gonna give a wave. There we go. And also Eric Goslin. And also Jose Charbonneau. Thanks, Jose, who are all a part of this team. And so we're going to have a tag team workshop for you all today. Great. So everyone should be able to see my screen. And I'm going to get going, I think. Welcome all. So go ahead, Daphne. I turn it over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We'll just move it along to the next slide.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. So just before we get into the presentation, just a little bit about where we're operating out of. I'm at St. Mary's University, and in addition to being an accounting professor, I'm the exec director of our Center of Excellence in Accounting and Reporting for Cooperatives. We call it CEARC for short. So we've been around since 2007, and we conduct research into any aspect really of financial and non-financial reporting. We also look at accounting standards and how they can be improved for cooperatives. Next slide. So we also have our sister organization, the International Center for Cooperative Management, and that center offers our master's program, Masters of Management for Co-ops and Credit Unions, and both Fiona and I teach in that program, and Eric is a graduate of the program. The center also offers a certificate and diploma educational programs, and they conduct professional development sessions for practitioners. Moved along, please. So the objectives of our workshop today is really to learn more about the SDGs. We want to learn about how they can be measured and reported and why you should care about that. And we also want to learn more about how cooperatives can connect with the SDGs. And finally, we hope that some folks may be interested in participating in designing this tool, which is for co-ops, developed by co-ops in terms of a framework for reporting indicators and metrics. So I think at this point, Fiona, you're going to test our knowledge on what we know about SDGs.
Yes, we are. So everyone get ready. I'm going to ask Samantha to please launch our first poll. Thank you, Samantha. So we have a poll there for you. Great. So if you can take a few moments to fill in the poll, that would be great. I can see that 88% of you have voted. There's one more opportunity. And we're going to give you 3 more seconds. That final person. Okay, I'm going to end the polling. And now I will share the results. It seems like we only had one, oh, sorry. We only had one, oh gosh, end the polling. Oh gosh, what happened? Sorry, everyone. The poll didn't, something must have happened when I clicked. So now it looks like nobody voted, but everybody did except for one person, and only one person was tricked in that the spotted discouraged giraffes is in fact the full of SDGs. So
what? It wasn't the giraffes.
It wasn't. Sorry, Eric. Okay, we have one more poll for you, and I'll try not to not share somehow. Samantha, can you launch our second poll, please? Thank you. So in this case, we're asking, how would you rank your knowledge about the SDGs? And so, I don't know, Eric, can you actually see the poll running here, or do you see a version of it on your end?
No, I see the poll and I actually vote.
Okay, great. Thank good. Okay, 9 people. Let's end the polling. I'll try not to mess it up this time. And now we're sharing the results. Oh, right. Look at this. Look at all the dabblers in the SDGs. So this is fantastic. We already have some folks who are quite familiar with the SDGs, including some people who practically wrote them themselves. So great. We can really share in this workshop space because clearly we have a pretty high level of knowledge around what the SDGs are. Thanks everyone for participating. I'm going to turn it back to Daphne to talk a little bit more about the presentation.
Okay, next slide. So by way of introduction, back in 2015, the United Nations, comprised of 193 countries, including Canada, adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So since then, there's certainly been growing need and interest in how to measure and report on the SDGs. It's interesting to note that there was a study conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they looked at 729 publicly listed companies, and it turns out that of those companies, 72% mentioned SDGs, but only 23% included meaningful quantitative key performance indicators and targets. And that's probably because it's not a very easy thing to do. Certainly it's important for the Canadian cooperative sector, which has over 6,000 co-ops. Currently, there is no mechanism to design, measure, and report on the sector's SDG impacts. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So for this project, we had our industry partner, which is Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada, which is the apex organization representing co-ops and mutuals, and they're responsible for rounding up participants for our project. The academic partner was, of course, our organization CEARC at St. Mary's. And the funding largely came from a SSHRC grant, and of course, there was also funding provided by the center. Next slide. So the purpose of, just go back one. So the purpose of our research, first of all, our primary goals is to support SDG reporting for cooperatives in Canada at the national level. So we're trying to identify SDGs that are applicable for the cooperative sector. Then, of course, once you do that, you want a place to hold them. So we want to develop an online repository for the data. And of course, once you have a sufficient number of co-ops entering their data, you should have the ability then to create benchmark data. And, you know, it's really important for co-ops to be able to evaluate how they're doing in comparison to their peers. And we also want to be able to identify how the Canadian cooperative cooperative sector is doing in terms of contributing to Canada's measurement and reporting on the SDG impact. So it'd be nice to know if co-ops are doing more than, commercial enterprises. Our secondary goal is to contribute to the capacity and knowledge of Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada to be able to support their members in terms of advancing SDGs in the cooperatives, because cooperatives have the ability to do more than they're doing, and some are doing work on it and they're not really reporting on it in that manner. Next slide. The SDGs, they are really designed to address the global challenges related to poverty, inequality, climate, environmental issues, prosperity, peace, and justice. So the goals of the SDG is for sustainable development of all nations that adhere to economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. SDGs focus sustainable development in both developed and developing countries, and they certainly help to facilitate action at all levels in all sectors, including government, civil society, the private sector, science community, etc., to be able to strengthen the capacity of everybody to achieve the overall outcomes. Next slide. So these are the 17 SDGs. I'm not going to list them all here, but you can see them. So I'm sure this graphic is very familiar to most people. And next slide. So in terms of the indicators, it's really important for organizations to have indicators in order to monitor their progress towards the SDGs at both the local, national, regional, and certainly global levels. It's neat, and a sound indicator framework will play a key role in the SDGs and having their targets and using it as a manageable tool to help countries. So once you get a framework and a benchmark, then various jurisdictions should be able to develop implementation strategies, allocate their resources accordingly, reporting on their progress, and ensuring that the stakeholders are held accountable for achieving the SDGs. So now that I've gotten us through the literature review, I'll turn it over to my trusty colleagues here to continue on with the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Daphne. There's 17 goals, as we all know. Those, as Daphne said, that icons should be fairly familiar to folks at this point. But then embedded into each of those icons, we have targets totaling out of 169 different targets. And then in those targets, we have indicators totaling out of 247. So this is a big and robust framework that has been created at the UN level, but with connections with all countries all around the world, in order to come at and create something that is in fact standardized and universal. Of course, this has been met with some critiques, of course. How is it possible to try to monitor 247 indicators? And so this is kind of one of the places where we thought, okay, how can we step in and support the co-op sector? As Daphne has highlighted for us, we just wanted to pull us up here at that 30,000 feet kind of moment here, and why should we all care about these SDGs? We have talked about poverty reduction, certainly in a time of COVID where we've seen resilience really being tapped and also being honed. We've also seen how working towards a very comprehensive, holistic understanding of sustainability, we can work towards sustainability, or pardon me, stability. In general, we can see how when people are stable and people are employed and people have the things that they need, then we see further examples of peace around the world emerge. We also see a sense of public security, both our individuals as well as communities and neighborhoods, as well as at the nation level. And then, of course, the future for the environment, which is really the planetary boundaries that we see being tapped and taxed at the moment. And the SDGs are working towards this, which I hope we can all make the leap as to why this is important, not just for us as individuals, but also for our neighborhoods, communities, businesses, nations. Okay, so why should co-ops care about this? Which is really bringing it into our moment right here. Let's bring that co-op picture to it. So as we all know and have been thinking more and more about, certainly in the CASC conference, but as we do further research and also problematize all of this, but co-ops can be community leaders. And as community leaders, they really want to be able to understand the impact that they're making in communities for individuals, members, again, at that sort of nation level. We want to, as Daphne mentioned, maybe co-ops want to do a bit of benchmarking in order to be able to compare themselves, not just from what they did last year in that or 5 years ago in terms of sort of trending for their individual co-ops, but we can also see that as benchmarking perhaps to maybe some of their other competitors or other like-minded or like size or like industry co-ops. So that benchmarking opportunity within the co-op sector as well, because what we've heard is mostly co-ops do it with their competitors that are outside of the co-op sector. Is there some opportunities for us to really do some sector building from within? Of course, co-ops, how can we think about SDGs as a way of them being strategic and making plans that are according to and around this framework that the SDGs have provided for us? What we certainly found in our research is that maybe not all SDGs speak to all co-ops, but there's certainly a space and place for that interconnectivity between the co-ops principles, and the SDGs. Of course, co-ops want to be able to communicate that impact. And so if you've got some information about yourself in terms of the impact that you're making around the SDGs, then now you can communicate that in a broader sense. To your membership, to your within your community, to maybe new members, for example, to clients, in order to be able to talk about some of the great work that you're doing, which is actually something that we really have found that co-ops do great work, but so co-ops are sort of walking that talk, but they're not really talking about their walk. And so this opportunity to actually have some data and information about them in terms of the SDGs would really maybe help them to be able to talk a little bit more about what they're doing. I think we can all leap to that forward-thinking moment in terms of strategic planning. Where do you want to be in 5 years, and how can we actually get there in terms of the plans? I will really hope that our co-op sector is a sector that is working towards being more progressive, embracing those moments instead of hiding in the sand and saying, this isn't something we can tackle. Instead, it's something like, let's try to tackle it and let's try to see what we can do. And part of that is knowing where we're at even in that moment. And then, of course, many co-ops are businesses, and so perhaps there is an opportunity to nurture that competitive advantage in the sort of and around that language of the co-op difference. And this might be another place where we could actually sort of land a little bit more and to be able to say, okay, here's what co-ops do in terms of the SDGs. So what do we want to do with all this information? If we collect it, if we understand it, if co-ops collect it and understand it. So, making that an understanding better, that connection between the co-op principles and the SDGs, and where in fact are those overlaps more and more, or not, as the case may be. Again, that opportunity to embrace the SDGs and be really a part of that future thinking in terms of sustainability. And then really where as Daphne mentioned, where there is currently no framework to that is for the co-op sector, by the co-op sector, to be able to really jump into this SDG moment around measuring and then reporting on SDGs. So one of the things that we've been working on throughout this project is to really be able to sort of drive towards that in order to create that space for co-ops. So I'm going to turn it over to Jose, who's going to talk a little bit specifically about the methodology of this project.
Yes, thank you, Fiona. So for the methodology, how did we do what we have done so far? So in other terms, how did we get to some of the indicators that we now have, some of the metrics that we now have, is that we did a participatory action research. Sorry for the little stumble on the first word. So that what it means, I guess most of you already know what it means, but and essentially what we did is that we contacted some cooperatives and mutuals, but I don't think any of them answered yet. So we contacted cooperatives, credit unions throughout Canada, through CMC that contacted them mostly to work on a list of indicators, on a list of metrics with us. So 16 participants were recruited at the beginning of our process, coming from small, medium, and large co-ops throughout Canada. And we tried to get someone from every province to work with us into it. First, we did a recruitment webinar where everybody interested in SDGs and co-ops were invited to come. And that's how we recruited 16 of them that wanted to go on the adventure with us and participate to the process of thinking about co-op specific indicators and metrics. So we did that, and first step we made is develop an online survey because we wanted to know what was the baseline level of these participants, knowing about SDGs and what was done actually in their co-ops, if anything, about the SDGs. So the first one was to assess the baseline level of knowledge and reporting of the SDGs. And through that, we observed that some SDGs seem to be more relevant or more useful for them. And we focused on that further on. After that, we did a discussion board with participants, but trying to get interaction on an online basis, but it's sometimes more difficult as you have to go by yourself and interact in a limited way. So we've focused mostly on webinars up until now, and we did a whole work, all the four of us together, trying to get some metrics that would be relevant to co-op principles, relevant to co-op model, and also, if possible, linked to every one of the SDGs as much as possible. So we try to have a great range of different metrics. We had too much, of course. We had a whole lot to sort out, and so we succeeded in going to 151 metrics that were unique, and send them into a survey to our 16 co-op participants that went with us through the process. They commented on it, mostly saying there's still too much, please do something about that. And so we worked again our way through it, getting the comments, modifying some, removing some, etc. And we ended up with a little shorter list of metrics, for which we sent another survey through the last, I guess, month, going on to get information about everything that people thought about it. So as you can guess, we had to go through different sources, references to get different possible matrix. And eventually we decided to go with the metrics that were the most frequently included in our list, to send it to the survey and retain for, up until now. So many of them, and eventually our best metrics were chosen accordingly to 4 criteria that we developed. And what we wanted to see is this metric important for stakeholders? So co-op managers and members and board, etc. Is it feasible for them, for co-ops, to collect that information? Is it, does it have to be compared to something else to be useful? So is it relative? And is it too sector specific? If it was only, for example, if it was too focused on housing sector, that would be interesting, but not for every one of the co-ops. So what we wanted to do is try to find some metrics that could be applied and used by every co-ops. Now, we have 25 indicators. Remember, we started from like 400, I don't know how many, went down to 151, and then 25 indicators later, we're on. So the survey number 2, as I said just earlier, is on the field now. We've went back to our participants, but we also published it to everyone that's interested into these informations to give their opinion on the 25 indicators and matrix that we kept. And it's still going on, am I right? It's not closed yet, so you can still fill it out if you want to comment on this. And I think, okay, Fiona just added the link into the chat, so I think that would be my cue to give you the micro back, Fiona.
Thank you, Jose, for telling us about the methodology. Okay, here is the moment where we're all going to jump in and do a little making sense of these matrix ourselves. So if you remember, we had 4 criteria. We're going to get folks to now work with some of these. So we've picked about 7 different matrix out of the 25. And we have loaded these onto a Jamboard. So this is in your chat at the moment. And so if you can go click on that and head on over to the Jamboard, and I'll explain it in just one moment. And actually, I just have to stop sharing my screen for just one moment so that I can bring up the Jamboard. So while you're going to the Jamboard, I also am. Okay, I can see people are heading there, so this is great. Oh gosh, can't. So my screen won't let me share and have the Jamboard. Great. So, Eric, I'm going to start us off with the first one and turn it over to Eric. So if I just can remind you that we are going to work with you on, and you're going to work with us, hopefully, on two different criteria for these matrix. So Eric is going to take us through this. The two criteria we're asking you to participate with is important for stakeholders and whether you think it's feasible. So, and what you can see on the Jamboard is these two coming up here. Oh, great. So I can see folks are there. Oh, nice. Look at somebody's already right in there making it happen. So on the one end, the sticky notes is exactly what you should do. So I'll just show everybody how to do that. So right here, there's right underneath the arrow, there's a sticky note you'll see on the left-hand side. You want to click on a sticky note, and then you can just write yes or no or whatever you want, and then put it where, in fact, you think it is on this. So so now I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and he's going to explain the matrix and how it connects to the SDGs. And if anybody has any questions, pop them in the chat on how to use Jamboard, and I'll help you out. But look at this, folks are doing it. Go for it, Eric. Jump in.
Okay. So we've selected a sample of metrics. We call them metrics because they're not quite indicators. Data point is kind of boring word, so we use the word metric because we're going to combine the information we get, like this one. How many members attended the AGM? On its own, it's boring because it's just a number, but we combine it with profile metrics that we ask to the survey respondent earlier. How many members do you have? So we can divide and figure out the percentage of what the percentage was of members attending the AGM. So, but we want to make the metric, the actual question itself, really simple. So it should be easy for a co-op or mutual to answer how many members attended the AGM. So now we're asking you guys to jam on this board and tell us with sticky notes or little notes or text boxes, or if you want to load, like, I don't know, some kind of weird, some images you find online. And so we're getting yeses that it's important for stakeholders. And it's sort of the question we asked in the survey that we sent to participants. We want to know if it's important to their co-op. Is it important for themselves to know how many members attended the AGM? And generally on this one, we get yes, because we want members to attend. We want them to have participation in the AGM. Okay. And we also included little icons from the SDGs that relate what the information we're gathering, the number of members attending. We're relating that to specific SDGs. Reduced inequalities. The more people attend AGMs and participate in the democratic process, in theory, we're reducing inequalities because people have the power when you come to the AGM. And you'll see SDG number 16 popping up often in our metrics, because obviously the more members attending the AGM and participating, the more we have a strong institution. Okay, the other part that you're seeing on the right side of the screen that says feasible is asking, okay, well, is it easy to figure out how many members attended the AGM? Generally, we've got one person with a blue sticky note. Nice. Yes, it's feasible. Excellent. Generally, we get the same kind of response. Yes, it's pretty feasible. It's probably legally obligated to record the number of members attending and which members with their member number. So this is fairly this is a lobber. Is that what you call it in baseball? A lobber, easy to hit. We get people saying that it's easy to indicate how many members attended the AGM. So on the back end of the tool, our job as researchers is to take the number of members that attended the AGM, divide by the total of number of members, and then we benchmark it. We look at their sector, okay, which province, and then we see if a certain sector or a certain province has more attendance percentage-wise at the AGM. And then the idea is to have, when we roll out the tool, have that data available anonymously, of course, but people could click through and say, oh, I want to compare my sector. Okay, I have 5% of my members attending the AGM. How is everyone else doing in my sector? And then you could see, oh, everybody else is doing like an average of 12% members attending the AGM. So I got to like kick it up a notch. Okay, so only one.
Can I advance to the next one, everyone?
Sure, I was just gonna say how I'm disappointed how only one person said yes to that it was feasible to indicate how many members attended the AGM.
So just a little reminder for each Jamboard, we're going to do sort of see how many we can get done together. So you would make 2 sticky notes, one for why yes it's important or no it's not important for stakeholders, and then you would make a second sticky note for is it feasible or not. And so then you can put it in our little continuum here. Yep, it's totally feasible, they should already have the data, or well, easy enough to get the data, or they would never get the data. They would never be able to do this. So as Eric said, this is pretty low-hanging fruit in terms of an indicator and a metric right here. So I'll just give like 2 more seconds on this particular Jamboard. You control the Jamboard, I will also say, because you have the link. So if you want to spend more time on this one, even though we're going to move along to the next one, or if you want to go fast and go forward, you can do that too. But we'll take ourselves to the second Jamboard. Okay, go for it, Eric.
Okay.
So
this one,
actually, maybe I should need to tell everyone, up at the very top, you'll see a couple little arrows. So you want to hit the next frame, and that will take you to the next one. Thanks, Eric.
all right, thanks. So the next one, I started soft. It's like super easy. What is the number of new members added during the last fiscal year? Should be easy. But hey, maybe you tell me if it's important. Maybe nobody cares how many members you added. So the idea there is to say, okay, well, we have open and voluntary membership. If we can add new members, it's a good sign. The 2 SDGs that we relate to are the same as the first one because we're talking about membership. And same thing, we're going to kind of like divide the information and have a percentage. And there's also a metric that we haven't included in the sample today, but the metric is how many members have you lost during the year. So we combine how many members attended the AGM, how many new members do you have, how many members did you lose, and we start getting a really good picture of like your openness and how people can enter and how many people you're losing. Maybe you're doing something wrong, so you're losing a lot of members. Okay, so I'm glad that everybody's on board with this one, saying that it's important. And this is the one that's really good. Yes, different from type of co-ops. Oh, I think I get what you're saying. You're saying that, yeah, it depends on what type of co-op you have. Some are like, if it's a worker co-op, and we'll have that in the profile questions, we'll know if it's a worker co-op. Obviously, you won't have a ton of new members, and hopefully you won't be losing many worker co-op members in 1 year. So I think that's what you're relating to when you posted this. Thanks, good point, very good point. That's why the profile questions are going to be really important.
Eric, I'm going to move us along. And so if everybody wants to hit the arrow to move to the next one, that would be great.
Sweet. Okay, I'm getting the subtle signal from Fiona that I need to go faster. That's good.
That's okay. We'll just see how many we can get done here together.
Wow, perfect. Okay, the number of employees full-time equivalent, that's what FTE means, in each of the following categories: permanent and temporary. So it's going to be taking a little bit of more time for the person responding, because they have to figure out if they have a lot of part-time workers. They're going to have to do a bit of math. Okay, important for stakeholders. Okay, excellent. Lots of yeses there. And is it feasible? Well, hopefully, if they have an HR department, they can figure this out. Yes, no. Oh, great. Everybody agrees. We're just going to move to the next one and get to the really sticky ones, where we're going to get disagreement.
So folks feel that this one's also quite feasible. As Eric said, if you have any kind of HR stats, then you can probably figure some of this out. Feel free also, if you feel like it's not connecting as well to the SDGs, or you feel like there's a leap of assumption here, you want to put in a little sticky note with a comment on something like that, then feel free to own the board, so to speak. I'm going to move us along to the next one. Go ahead, Eric.
All right. Okay. All right. Annual remuneration of the highest paid full-time equivalent to the lowest paid full-time equivalent employee, including bonuses and other benefits. Okay, and we have a question here. Who are considered as the stakeholders? Yeah, we actually got that question in survey 1 that we sent out to participants. It's like, well, like everyone, like, or just the stakeholders of our specific co-op? Or do you mean like just the people that are clients or member clients or workers inside the co-op? So we got, yeah, we're sort of, we use stakeholders as a sort of a catch-all, and we we assume that co-ops are going to kind of use their own definition of stakeholders. They know who their stakeholders are, so they use that definition to define whether it's important to their stakeholders. And this is going to come up. I think I included that metric coming up about local, the word local. So that's going to come up later, because everyone has a different definition of local, as everyone has a definition of stakeholders.
And we can already see here, just from our Jam board, that everyone believes that this would be an important indicator for stakeholders, but now we're shifting into a little bit more in that medium category about, yeah, they could get the data, but it's not already have the data necessarily. They have to maybe run a little analysis. Great. Eric, I'm going to move us along. If you want to take yourselves to the 5th Jam board.
Okay, what is the average annual salary for the following employees? All right, now it's getting complicated. So we put this in our survey. We have male employees, female employees, and gender diverse employees. Now, if you read the 169 targets and the 200, I don't know what indicators in that SDG document, you probably noticed that they don't mention gender diverse, but we felt it's kind of a, you know, what is the quote? It's 2015. So we decided to include that to see what kind of response. And we already got some respondents saying, well, what do you mean by gender diverse? And we can't, like, we're not going to go out and ask, hey, are you gender diverse? You know, kind of out people. So it's good. It's kind of a sticky situation, but it's interesting to see that few of you have said that it's important for stakeholders and that it's also feasible. That's great. It's excellent.
This one also hits off a number of the SDGs. One of our goals was to try to create indicators or metrics that would speak to as many SDGs as possible within reason, of course. All right, should we move along? Everyone can play around with that. Feel free, you also can go back and forth, because again, as I said, you own the board. So if you want to move forward quicker, then please do. Or if you're still working on back on board 3, don't worry. I'm going to move us along now to board 6. Go ahead, Eric.
All right. What is the percentage of employees, full-time equivalents, earning living wage in your co-op or mutual? So we weren't sure if people were going to know what living wage meant, so we kind of added that link, livingwagecanada.ca, and we also added a link for Quebec. We couldn't have the link here in the Jamboard, so you won't be able to click on it, but it was basically Quebec didn't have data in livingwagecanada.ca, so we found an article for Quebec that had certain different salaries for different regions of Quebec. Okay, so you guys probably know what living wage means. Okay, we got somebody saying it's difficult to get that kind of information. Yeah, I guess well, maybe you could specify in your sticky note there. Is it difficult for the co-op to know what salaries they're paying, or to figure out if it's a living wage in their community? I'm guessing you mean in their community, because there's no like overlord body that defines living wage in every single community and township in Canada. So it's kind of, yeah, exactly, living wage in that community. Yeah, that's what you meant, exactly. Yeah, that's going to be really the biggest problem with this one until we get some kind of, I don't know, governmental thing, or maybe a co-op that's called the living wage co-op that figures all the living wages in all the regions of Canada. So it's a bit of a gray area. We're going to leave co-ops the option to, for themselves. Okay, well, we feel that we're paying 100% of our employees living wage in our community, or maybe they need to look at it hard and go, yeah, we've got like 50% of our employees working at minimum wage, so we need to step it up.
Great, thanks, Eric. And this is a real good connector to that SDG 8 around decent work, and then you pay people well, then you can have economic growth within your communities as well, because people have got money to spend in their communities. And co-ops talk an awful lot. And so while this one starts to get a little bit closer maybe to some pain points potentially for co-ops, it's important for us to be digging deep on some of these, that's for sure. Let's move along, Eric. You can see also these are getting a little bit trickier, a little bit harder each as we go along.
Yeah, the next one, what is the percentage of employees, managers recruited from the local community at your co-op or mutual's major operating sites? So there's a lot of, co-ops have to wade through the information. So I'm glad to see that a few of you are saying it's important for stakeholders, because we want people working in their area. They come from there, they know the people, they have a stake in that community. And if we're importing people from I don't know where, or having them work working on their computer from some other country, but are serving a co-op in local community in Canada, well, maybe we should be getting somebody from that community instead of having somebody work I don't know where in another country. Okay, and I'm glad you think that it's also feasible. A couple of yeses saying it's feasible. I wasn't so sure, because we have, let's say, the cooperators. They've got like offices in big cities in Canada, and they have like subsidiaries. So how are they going to figure out, their hundreds of line managers, where those people, if they're working in Regina, did they come from Regina or close to Regina? Like, it might be a bit tough, but I'm glad you guys think it's doable. That's awesome.
Great.
We're gonna move along.
Yeah. Here comes the next one. If you move along to Jamboard 8.
8. Okay. Okay, so cooperative taking measures to produce goods or services more sustainably. And then we have sort of sub questions. We can't do it here because this is not a survey. This is just a Jamboard. But if they click yes, then they get this sub question that says, what is the percentage of goods produced by your cooperative that is And then the option that you don't see on your screen on the Jamboard is that we want to know what the percentage of goods produced by your cooperative that is made at least partially from recovered materials, made at least partially from recycled materials, products that are recyclable. Are they certified fair trade, certified organic, certified FSC? Are they energy efficient? I'm glad you guys think it's important. Yeah, this is honestly, it's.
For those of you who want to see some of the more the details of this, if you're toggled to the shared screen, you'll see the details that Eric was just mentioning. So if they've said, yes, we want to see if we can get some of those numbers behind stuff, which starts to get that feasible piece, and will they already have that data available or not? And this really speaks to that SDG 12 around responsible consumption.
Yeah, I see somebody's got that says more difficult. Is it feasible? More difficult for those not producing goods. And it's exactly the reaction we got from credit unions. They're like, what do you mean? But we want them to sort of use the other option to indicate, well, our services we sell, quotation marks, RRSPs that are like, I don't know, maybe it's low carbon, or maybe they've got like green bonds or something. So we want them to use their interpretation of this metric to say that their services are sustainable.
Great. I'm going to advance us.
Okay, 9. Okay, we've got people populating this already. Okay, what is the number of persons involved in your co-op mutual in each of the following diversity categories? So this, if you want to see the diversity categories, maybe Fiona, you can show them on the Zoom there. We've got age groups. We want to know youth, and we want to know if people are less youth. We want to know about women, gender diverse, Indigenous people. This is again, it's another sort of hidden in the SDGs. We've got Indigenous recognition, but this is obviously a big deal in Canada, so we want to add that in. Visible minorities and persons with disability. So they just, again, they're gonna have to like sort of maybe do an internal survey, like somebody mentioned on the other Jamboard, an anonymous internal survey. So people kind of self-declare, yes, I'm gender diverse, or yes, I'm Indigenous. So they don't have to like be public about it. So hopefully people can run an internal survey and get this information. And it hits a lot of SDGs. So this is we find this is a good metric. Great, everybody agrees. Yes, yes, more. All right. Next.
What we can also see here is where the SDGs begin. One critique of the SDGs certainly is that it hasn't while it recognizes sort of in a universality kind of way of lifting everyone up. And then it captures sort of here and there a little bit. We have gender equality, but what it doesn't really do is talk specifically to Indigenous peoples around the world. And so this is one area where we can try to elevate that a bit and support co-ops to be able to think about that just that much more.
Oh yeah, somebody's asking, involved how, right? What is the number of persons involved in your co-op? Yeah, maybe we didn't get that wording right, because there's a lot of trees in our forest and metrics, so maybe we didn't get that quite right. I think our intention was, oh yeah, all right, you have to look at you have to look at the Zoom to figure out involved how. Yeah, so if you look at the Zoom, you'll see we're asking about directors on the board, and then we're asking about management employees and operation employees. That's why we use that word involved in the question, but it gets more specific in the options. So you have to look at the Zoom with the share screen to get that info. Sorry about that.
Maybe we have time for one more, just so that we'll have time to do a little wrap up before we run out of time today. Eric, I'll turn it over to you. This is Jamboard 10.
10. Oh yes, my favorite one. Okay. Does your co-op mutual have a greenhouse gas inventory? All right. So we have the option. If you answered no, here's the concept. So we give them the concept, and then if you answered yes, then Then we asked them what their greenhouse gas inventory, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, what their baseline was, what year they measured their baseline, and then what all their data is for the most. So I mean, the big co-ops who are already doing this, easy to answer, but small co-ops are going to have really tough time. But we didn't. I mean, we wanted to go big. This is sort of becoming the international standard. So we wanted to get people on board with this greenhouse gas inventory. So yeah, I'm glad you guys are saying we can get the data. For small co-ops, it's going to be tough. So yeah, I guess that's going to be the last one for the metrics for today.
Great, thank you so much, Eric. And then we have one more bonus one there, but which you can turn to Jamboard 11 if you'd like. Please go, there we go. That's the last one for today. And so just as a way of wrapping up here, and I would love if you feel free to put into the chat or just write on a sticky note, write on this Jamboard, whatever you want, some reflections yourself as well. So definitely what we've heard from our participants is the fewer metrics or indicators, the better, in order to encourage people to be able to fill it in. But what is really difficult, as you can imagine, is finding that sweet spot that will actually speak to and across all different kinds of co-ops, different types, different industries, a different size, the nonprofit and the for-profit types of co-ops. It's finding that sweet spot has been difficult. In addition, also finding the sweet spot on something that is meaningful and robust that people can actually use versus something that is feasible, meaning they're going to be able to collect the data. So of course, yes or no questions are more feasible, but do they actually mean anything when push comes to shove at the end, right? So this is our ongoing task, that's for sure, and our participants have been fantastic in helping us with this. Also, what's really interesting that has emerged is this issue of privacy. So in many cases, this information is actually, you can find either on their annual report, or you could find perhaps even in their on their website or other kinds of public media. But as soon as we start to call it data, it means that people start to get worried that it's something that they need to really protect. And in this crazy world that we're in, where people put everything on Facebook, and there's just this total privacy blown out of the water. But then at the same time, this sort of I need to hold my cards a little bit closer. Maybe that's competitive advantage. Or other kinds of perception around somebody could be using my data in a nefarious kind of way. This has really come up. It's as soon as we call it data. We also want to just highlight the ownership issue. So who owns this data now that people put it in a tool? And so definitely one of the ways that we're thinking about how we can do this is, can we make a co-op? So it would be a data co-op, or so we really want to be able to explore this more because we're researchers, and we're hoping that this can have some legs going forward. Also, just around our methodology, it has been, for anybody who's done a participatory action research project, it's been a long-going project, and our participants have been amazing. But we have found that for the most part, people want it already done. They don't necessarily want to be a part of the design process of this, which I think is interesting in our co-op world, again, where we think that there's a lot of ownership and a lot of, we want our say. But in fact, what we have found for the most part is that people mostly just want it already done, and then they want to be able to say, not this for me. They want to be able to select specific things for that would work for them in the end, in that sort of bespoke kind of way. So these are some challenges that we're still working through. Okay, so Eric has already put our survey that we have currently in the field that Jose was mentioning. So if you would like to participate by helping us out with further idea generation around this tool, in particular around the metrics and indicators, that would be fantastic. Cut and paste it and give it a go. That would be fantastic. And then in the meantime, we're going to be working on developing this tool based on these metrics, developing a governance structure for the tool, thinking about how we can best now disseminate this and get co-ops to actually fill it in and use it, like get their data in there and then use that data for all those reasons why we mentioned why it was important for their co-op. So we're right at the end of the hour here. We really appreciate you all participating and working through our Jamboard with us. Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. And we'll keep this open for a little bit longer if you want to add anything else into it. And otherwise, stay tuned. And we are happy to hear any other ideas from you about how we can move forward on this. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. I think I'm the one. Oh, okay, there we go. Great. All right, I guess we're done. Thanks, Eric.
Awesome.